Chapter 44 is called Whose Ears Are Those? Who's there? Shouted Cook again. Despereaux wisely said nothing. The kitchen was silent. Said Cook. Nothing, it's nothing at all. Just my nervous Nelly ears playing tricks on me. You're an old fool, she said to herself as she turned back to the stove. You're just an old fool afraid of being caught making soup. Despereaux slumped against the spool of thread. And as he leaned there, his heart pounding, his paws shaking, a small, wonderful something occurred. A midnight breeze entered through the kitchen and danced over to the stove and picked up a scent of soup and then swirled across the floor and delivered the smell right directly to the mouse's nose. Despereaux put his head up in the air. He sniffed. He sniffed some more. He had never in his life smelled anything so lovely, so inspiring. With each sniff he took, he felt himself growing stronger, braver. Cook leaned in close to the kettle and put the spoon in and took the spoon out and blew upon the spoon and then brought it to her lips and sipped and swallowed. She said. She took another sip. Missing something, she said. More salt, maybe. She put the spoon down and took up an enormous salt shaker and sprinkled salt into the kettle. And Despereaux, feeling emboldened by the smell of soup, again set to work pushing the spool of thread. Quickly, he said to himself, rolling the spool across the floor. Do it quickly. Do not think. Just push. Cook whirled the salt shaker in her hand and shouted, Who goes there? Despereaux stopped pushing. He hid behind the spool of thread as Cook took the candle from the stove and held it up high. She said. The candlelight came closer. Closer. What's this? The light came to rest directly on Despereaux's big ears sticking up from behind the spool of thread. Oh, said Cook, whose ears are those? And the light from the candle then shone full in Despereaux's face. A mouse? Said Cook. A mouse in my kitchen? Despereaux closed his eyes. He prepared for his death. He waited, readers, and waited, and then he heard the sound of laughter. He opened his eyes and looked at Cook. Ha! Said Cook. Ha! For the first time in my life, I'm glad to see a mouse in my kitchen. Why? She asked. Why am I glad? Ha! Because a mouse is not a king's man here to punish me for making soup. That's why. Because a mouse is not a king's man here to take me to the dungeon for owning a spoon. Ha! A mouse. Oh, Cook, I'm glad to see a mouse. Cook's face was red and her stomach was shaking. Ha ha ha, she said again, and not just any mouse. A mouse with a needle tied around his waist. A mouse with no tail. Ain't it lovely? Ha! She shook her head and wiped at her eyes. Look, mouse, these are extraordinary times. And because of that, we must have some peace between us. I will not ask you what you're doing in my kitchen. And you, in return, will tell no one what I'm cooking. She turned then and went back to the stove and set down the candle and picked up the spoon again and put it in the pot of soup and took it back out and tasted the soup, smacking her lips together. Not right, she said, not quite right, missing something still. Despereaux did not move. He could not move. He was paralyzed by fear. He sat on the kitchen floor. One small tear fell out of his eye. He had expected Cook to kill him. Instead, readers, she laughed at him, and he was surprised how much her laughter hurt. That's the end of the chapter. Why didn't Cook kill Despereaux? Yeah, because it said that she was making soup, and she was super nervous that the sound she was hearing was going to be the king's man coming to take her to the dungeon because she was breaking the law, right? But when she saw Despereaux, a mouse, she wasn't angry, she was just relieved. And so she laughed at Despereaux. And how did that make Despereaux feel? Yeah, it made him feel pretty bad. I know because in the last page, I saw that a single tear fell out of his eye. And he said it was surprised how much her laughter hurt him. All right, let's keep going.